Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle, and I'm joined by my co-host, Michael Reed. Like usual, you can't see him right now. He's a ghost. But Hall will be joining us here momentarily. He's currently picking up his brother from the Metro at the moment. But thank you for tuning into the Burgundy Zone, which is a part of the Frederick Podcast Network. You can find out more by going to www.listenfrederick.com. This episode of the Burgundy Zone is called Peter's Plan, because the Commanders had just announced a couple days ago that they have hired Adam Peters as GM, not the SFO, the president of football operations, actual GM. And we wanted to celebrate this with none other than Fred of the pod, Mr. Steve Manella from Pro Football Focus. How you doing, brother?
Hey, what's up, guys? Doing well. Yes, I'm with you. I'm excited. It's a new era, if you will, for Washington fans and Washington itself. So I'm excited.
I'm not sure if we could keep going on with that, Steve, because with Rivera, that was beaten to death.
I know, man.
But,
I know.
Steve, you being from the quarterback impact, being a guru on the quarterback position itself, teaching a lot of young guys and being able to guide them for the future in the quarterback position, kind of talk about Sam Howell's growth. And in your honest opinion, where are we right now with Sam Howell looking forward?
Yeah, so Sam had an interesting offseason last year, right? So he beat Dallas his last game, or his first start in the NFL. Got every Washington fan going crazy because he played well and you saw some flashes. And then this season, the first probably 6, 7, 8 weeks, man, he was playing really well. A couple 400-yard games against Philly. And then that was before we all knew Philly's defense was absolutely bad. But still, it doesn't matter. No taking away from anything Sam did. He played really well. And we were all excited. And I know I was on here a couple times throughout the season, and all of us were like, man, this, Sam, he might have it. And then in like the last 6, 7, 8 weeks or so, film didn't lie either. And Sam played rough, right? A lot of it, it wouldn't have been so bad if Jacoby didn't come in and right away was on fire when he was. Okay. So this is nothing to be on here and bashing Sam, because I think he's still a good quarterback. I think he could still be a serviceable guy. But I think his ceiling now after this full season is kind of like a Fitz Magic type, kind of, if you will.
Okay.
Someone that's going to flash in the pan. He'll play a couple of games for you if you need him to and ball out. And you're like, dang, he could go somewhere else and play. But over a long season, I just don't know that he can consistently be that guy. And I think, unfortunately, the O-line wasn't the greatest. We know that. And, and again, Eric Bieniemy didn't really help Sam out sometimes with the pass-heavy offense and not getting them out and booting a little bit and rolling them out. But overall, though, I think that I think Sam's a good player. I just don't think he'll be our QB1, if that makes sense. I think he's shown enough for a new regime to be like, yeah, we're probably gonna look elsewhere.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, it is kind of sad because, like you said, the first half of the season, a little bit longer. Like, I was basically, so I was like, dude, he keeps this up, I'm sold. Like, I want to move forward.
Yeah.
And then last month and a half, 2 months of the season happened. It was kind of like, who are you? What are you doing out there, Sammy boy? What's going on? But so a lot has been made about the quarterback position, and one of the arguments that you see from a lot of people that are, I mean, quite frankly, they're all wrong, is that we should go O-line at number 2. And I don't think that you pick that high without taking a quarterback unless you have an established guy. And I think if people are coming out, you got to take a flyer on it. But what are your thoughts on the O-line? Were they as bad as they seemed? Do you think it was some combination of them and Howell? Because Brissett went in there, played pretty well.
Yeah, it's a great point. Great questions. Nick would get on here and tell you guys the same thing, that the O-line really wasn't as bad. And I know PFS been bashed by the Washington fan base for the O-line having some games where we were in the top 10 or so when it came to pass blocking. Overall, though, the line did have some bad games, right? We know Leno struggled at times, but at the left side. But overall, I don't think that when Jacoby got in there, man, and he showed that with the same line, nothing changed.
running
same
pass plays
receivers.
too.
Exactly. He was in there on time in the pocket, getting the ball out quick, knowing where he was going. So, yeah, drafting O-line at number 2 to me, there's no Trent Williams, in my opinion, in this draft. I know Alt's really, really good. I know the kid from Penn State's really good as well. And they might even be like a Trent Williams down the road. But for Washington, they have got to find the quarterback. Like they've got to. And I'm not saying that Caleb Williams will be, who knows, or Drake May will be, right? Or, whoever, Jaden Daniels, whatever. But you have to do that, though, because if not, then you're going to continue to go down this cycle. So here's the thing. If we don't draft quarterback number 2, what do we do? Are we going to take, Michael Penix in the second round? Are we going to sign Russell Wilson? I mean, what's going to happen here? You know what I mean? So
trade for Carson Wentz.
Right. This fan base has done this so many times, and I know everyone is starving for that young franchise quarterback. I mean, Green Bay's got Jordan Love out here balling, and it's like, dude, it's so ridiculous,
unfair.
Man. Yeah,
so
when can we get that? Right?
You go Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers to Jordan Love, who's playing fantastic.
Yeah, he's playing fantastic. I mean, it's crazy. So, yeah, I think at number 2, obviously we don't make the decisions, all of us don't, but I think you got to go at quarterback with the new staff in.
You're absolutely right, dude. And because looking at Washington and the history and just being in quarterback purgatory for the fan base and just not being able to find that guy, imagine having the ability to do that at the second overall pick, not having to trade all that much, and then saying we shouldn't be looking at that. We should be building in other areas. I get it, but it's just the worry of it for me, Steve, just to give it vision to looking forward. But that being said, with the rookie quarterbacks, you've looked at Caleb Williams, you've looked a little bit of Drake May, if I'm not mistaken. Talk about those 2 quarterbacks, and what do you like about them, and what are some concerns?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Caleb Williams, he's a kid that can play, with, in my opinion, he could play with any kind of offense, right? I think a knock on Caleb is he couldn't be a pocket passer traditionally in the NFL, but if you watch his tape, there's plenty of film there where and you posted one the other day actually, where he's in the pocket dropping dimes, right? So to say that Caleb Williams is just an off-platform or off-schedule quarterback mainly is not necessarily the truth. Now, does he do that a lot, and does he rely on that a lot? Yes, he does. In the NFL, that's going to have to change, right? I mean, you can get away with that stuff, but even Patrick Mahomes, y'all watched him last night. Most of his passes were from the pocket last night. He did a great job, right? So, and he's one of the best. So, I mean, Caleb has big time potential. And as far as Drake May is concerned, he's your pocket passer. Okay, now he can move and escape a little bit. He's shown that on film. I think you look at Drake and you're like, man, 6'4", prototypical, good arm, slings it around.
Like an old school NFL quarterback too. Have you heard him talk?
Yes.
He sounds like Phillip Rivers or something. He's got that southern drawl and stuff.
He's compared to like a Herbert. I saw one that had him compared to like a Carson Palmer. Yeah. It kind of makes sense.
Somebody else said Big Ben, which I thought was odd, but the movement, the size, I can see a little bit. Not as fat, and I don't think he'd. I think you'd be okay being in a bathroom stall alone with him. I don't think you would be with Big Ben.
Probably so. But no, I think May is good. I just don't know. I mean, it's hard, right? At number 2, that's hard. I mean, when you're so quarterback hungry as Washington is, do you reach and take May? I mean, a lot of people think he could be number 2 worthy. You obviously got to pick one of them, right? If Williams is gone at 1, or if we don't trade up to 1 to get Williams, then May's there, Daniels. It's really, I mean, I don't see Penix climbing, right. So, but the tape on May shows that he does make NFL level throws in tight windows. There is a knock on him that he can, his balls will die on him. And I think that's more of a mechanic thing in the pocket. Then I think it can be fixed. Josh Allen was a kid that coming in the draft had a lot of problems like that too. Not saying May's going to be Josh Allen, but you get it. You know what I'm saying? So I think those things can be corrected with right coaching. And if it is Ben Johnson, and I know we're going to get to that soon, if it is Ben Johnson, who is the hot topic right now too as far as coach, I wouldn't have an issue with Drake May being that pick with a guy. Like, look what he's done for Jared Goff, right? So not saying Goff's not bad, or a bad quarterback, but I mean he's balling in Detroit, right? So May's got a lot of potential. I just don't. I myself would not take him over Caleb Williams.
Yeah, and there's a lot of pundits too, like Tim Hasselbeck. I know Dan Orlovsky that do say they're like, look, there's a chance Drake May could end up overtaking him, just if like some of the character stuff specifically kind of doesn't work out in Caleb's favor, and which you could see happening. But I think it was Tim Hasselbeck said since 2021, since all those quarterbacks, he would put Drake May third ahead of all those other. It would be Trevor Lawrence and Caleb Williams, and then Drake May, and then you'd get into like the Justin Fields, Trey Lance, those guys. Which is interesting. I thought that was pretty cool.
The one thing about Jaden Daniels was that LSU had combined with, I think, a Switzerland data kind of thing where they were using the state-of-the-art kind of data on Jaden Daniels and their quarterbacks to kind of use systems and situations in order to gear them to get their kind of mind and already ahead of time to where those situations happen on the football field. And apparently it worked wonders for them. I hope that continues.
We got him.
Oh, you froze. You froze. Say it again.
Oh, my bad. I was just saying that basically with LSU and Jaden Daniels, they used this kind of data format to be able to simulate these situations for Jaden, and they said that he was really receptive to it, and he was even doing it in lightning fast situations, which helped him. And if you look at his stats from this year, 40 touchdowns to like 4 interceptions or something like that, it kind of shows.
It's interesting too because LSU did the exact same thing with their baseball program and Paul Skeens this year, and he led to him being the #1 overall pick in the draft. But
I hope they bring that here.
Actually.
I hope Josh Harris.
No joke.
Josh Harris, he said that he's really deeply into advanced analytics, right?
That's why they brought in Shen. Yeah. But I mean, you're talking about coaches. Ben Johnson seems to be the hot name. He seems to be the perfect guy if you do take one of those young quarterbacks, especially if they need to work on something like mechanics, like Drake May might. But who are some other guys that you're kind of looking at? I know everybody's talking about Ben Johnson. We all expect that to be the guy, but like, who are some other head coaches that you're looking at? You hear things about Dan Quinn, Mike McDonald. Who else is out there?
So those are two names. I was actually you just took them.
Oh my bad.
But that's okay. That's okay. Though.
I do that sometimes.
Yeah, that's great. And I'll tell you another hot one. He's a former PFF guy too, which is really cool. Is Slowick, Bobby Slowick. What he's done with Houston has been incredible. Incredible, guys. Like, look, if you watched their game yesterday, that was one of the best called football games for an offensive staff, especially with a rookie quarterback and a bunch of young receivers, okay, and a young team overall. And they were balling, dude. And let's not take away from a great Browns defense.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Let's be real. That defense was legit.
Houston to win this game. Right.
No. Now, don't get me wrong. CJ Stroud is the real deal. Okay. And I'll admit myself, guys, I was not high on CJ Stroud. I wasn't because it wasn't even Stroud. It was me being an idiot, and it was the Ohio State thing. Yeah, okay, right. But CJ Stroud is special. CJ Stroud's special. I let that kind of bias get to me. Even watched the film. I was like, man, I can watch all film. It is because it seems like they don't work out right. But that dude's amazing. So, and that's what I'm saying, guys. When you look at Houston, it gives us hope because look what they've done. Cincinnati did it. Right? So new coach, new quarterback. Things can change quickly. And now, especially with teams in our division, the Giants, who knows what they're going to do. Dallas is not very young on their key positions now. Dak's been in the league a while, right? Lamb's young still, but I mean, they've got some age, okay? Obviously, they got the best player in Parsons. But then you look at the Eagles, what the heck's happened to them?
I know.
So, you know what I mean? Like, it's not crazy to think that we can at least compete. It just you got to get the right guys there, and I think that they're really working on that. I'm excited.
And to wrap this up, Steve, you're 100% right about that. I only have a couple more questions for you.
Yeah.
But that being said, with Bobby Slowick, I was talking to the guys last night in the Discord, and I was like, for all the times that we've seen that stupid graphic of the coaching staff from 2012, 2013, I think it's about time. It would be smart, full circle kind of moment for Washington to actually hire Slowick, because at many times that we've seen that graphic, it'd be nice to one time actually reap the benefits from that damn graphic. You know what I'm saying? But that being said, I know the connections with Ben Johnson. But looking ahead, the title of this episode is Peter's Plan, Steve. That being said, what do you think Peter's plan is? Just looking at it from a free agent aspect on this football team, what do you think the first kind of moving parts will be in personnel?
Yeah, I think obviously edge rusher, right? I don't think Josh Allen's going to be let go by Jacksonville, but he might. Who knows? I would definitely be all in on that. And then of course, I think edge rusher is the number one though on the defense. DB too. We've got to fix up some DB stuff. I hope that they keep Cam Curl. And I know that maybe he didn't have the greatest year, okay, but he's a good player and he's never hurt really. So he's a leader too. I like leadership, right? So I think Curl's a guy you should at least look to keep, okay. Forbes obviously was a rookie, struggled. Let him play next year. Who knows, man? He could end up being really good. I think sometimes I think us fans kind of get a little crazy with that. So edge rusher, DB, O-line. That's like 3 keys in linebacker. Now we know ever since Ron talked up linebacker for 4 years, it never really we just didn't have that impact guy at linebacker.
Nope.
It would be huge to have one at least come through and be like, man, that's a real good middle linebacker or even outside linebacker. So there's some holes now. Obviously, we know that. But with 80 or 90 million, whatever, and then a lot of picks, things can change quickly. So it's not doom and gloom. I think it's actually an exciting time again. I really haven't been excited since the RG3 era. I'm excited, guys. I want to see. I think things are looking up. It may not happen overnight. We got to be patient, but things will get better.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Reed said something similar the other night. He said he hasn't been this excited since January 6th. I told him it's probably a little bit too early for that joke.
But we were going to go murder Mike Pence.
There you go.
But that being said, Steve, Patrick Queen obviously is set to be a free agent, 24 years old, along with Devin White, who's only 26, which is kind of crazy. Which is even crazy to think about. It feels like he's been in the league for 10 years. But defensive end, Brian Burns, obviously is said to be a free agent. He's 25 years old. The other name that I would take, I looked at this guy in the pre-draft evals, AJ Espinenza from Buffalo. He's 25 years old, and that would not be a glamoring kind of big money type deal, but a guy you could get in and be productive. You watch Buffalo, very, very good.
He's a good player.
Yeah. Next question I have for you, Steve. A lot of people are saying that trade back is probably the best case scenario for Washington. Adam Peters did something similar there in San Francisco, and they think that's probably the best way to go about this business. Do you agree with that? Is there any scenario where you would be okay with trading back?
There is if Caleb goes 1 and you're at 2 and New England calls or someone like that for Drake May, and we can still get Jaden Daniels. Obviously, that's not a bad deal. Now, if Caleb Williams is there somehow at number 2, no, I'm not trading back for nothing. I mean, I'm not, and then on top of that, also, really, we can all talk about that because I've seen that on Twitter and stuff and other platforms as well. But realistically, guys, we know it's going to be up to what the heck this front office and staff's going to want.
Right.
And it's a lot easier to say trade down and add a bunch of picks. You don't know that that's going to be the greatest formula for success.
Right.
I mean,
it's a goal every year.
It's a goal every year. Right. It's a goal every year. So to sit there and say that, I mean, if Daniels is there at 6 or 7 and we're like, okay, well, we know he's going to be there and we want the kid, then let's maybe look at options, So, but I've seen some mock drafts that have Daniels going at 2 to us. So, I mean, I'm definitely excited to check his film. I know he balled out this year. I want to watch it.
Dude,
his deep ball
is insane. He has one of the most beautiful deep balls I've ever seen. It's always right on the money. It's always a dime.
Yeah, but my biggest concern with Jaden was his short to medium range accuracy. It's the kind of easier throws, and he doesn't have that pinpoint accuracy as other quarterbacks do to transition to the NFL. But like I've said, each one of these quarterbacks, they all have their own concern. It's just which recipe, which flavor ice cream you want, basically.
Sure, absolutely.
I'm a chocolate guy.
We know.
Whatever works for you, brother.
Chocolate and peanuts, we know. Now to wrap this up, Steve, last question I have for you, brother. I've done some mock drafts myself, and you talked about how Houston absolutely lit it up with their draft process and being able to gear this up for C.J. Stroud and Bobby Slowick. Well, I'd love to mimic the actual quarterback wide receiver kind of matchup that they've done with Tank Dell and C.J. Stroud last year. So I did the mock draft of taking Caleb Williams first over in the draft and then getting Xavier Leggett like in the first half of the second round, that first pick in the second round. Do you think that Washington should target a wide receiver early, either in free agency or the draft, if they are taking a rookie quarterback?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and I like that mock there too. I think Roma Duze is a kid too that would be a great, but he's probably going to go in the first. But even still, though, you know what I mean. I don't mind that at all. Actually, obviously you're going to keep Terry. We know that you got to. He's our guy, right? And then is Curtis Samuel coming back? I don't know. We don't know. And then obviously Dotson, he kind of, where was he really this year, right?
Right.
So, yeah, I don't see an issue with taking a receiver. The one guy I would look at, though, is free agency is T. Higgins.
Yep.
I would look at T. Higgins big time. Now, I don't know if the Bengals will let him go, but I would look at T. Higgins because he's a possession guy that would be great for Washington.
Yeah.
Great for Washington.
We need height.
We haven't had big receivers, and we tried with Malcolm Kelly and Devin Thomas.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
we flunked. We need some size out there. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm tired of
I
these
love T.
Deshaun
Higgins.
Jackson, Santana Mosses, Pierre Garcon.
Right.
I like them all.
Great players.
Give me somebody 6'3". You know what I'm saying?
Get in the red zone,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Get us them jump balls.
Absolutely.
Well,
absolutely.
that, and also if you have a shorter quarterback, if you look at the Saints, what they did with Drew Brees is they always surrounded him with big athletic targets.
Yeah.
That had a wide catch radius, made it easier on him, and that's probably something
Marcus
that Sam Howell would really
Michael
benefit
Thomas,
from. Right, that would really
Jimmy
benefit.
Graham.
Yep, exactly. That would
yeah.
benefit Sam, and also if you're going down the Caleb Williams route, that's also a really smart way to go about doing business.
Yep.
Steve, I can't thank you enough for joining us on this beautiful Sunday evening, brother. I know it's been a cold one up here, but I hope you have a great evening.
Same here.
And before you get out here, let's plug your social media handle, just in case anybody watching hasn't followed you yet, would like to, brother.
Appreciate it. Just for Twitter or X, whatever we call it these days, just Coach Manella. I'm always posting Washington stuff. So I've got quite a bit of fan base now from Commanders just being off of your guys. So that's great. Appreciate all that. Always appreciate the shout outs. We got to get my guy Lake Lewis on here more. He's great. I know you guys enjoyed having him on. Yeah, he's awesome. So, but I appreciate you guys too, man. It's always great.
Yeah. Steve, have a good weekend, brother. Enjoy it. Martin Luther King Day tomorrow. Have a great one.
Yeah. I appreciate that, guys. Y'all be good. We'll see you.
See you, dude. All right, we just spoke with the man, Mr. Quarterback Guru, Mr. Steve Manella. Always appreciate.
I can't believe I said the word murder and then my tweets afterwards. I didn't mean. I just meant that's what those boys were trying to do.
I know. It's just because whenever I make a joke, you get flustered and you can't handle it. You know.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's definitely not that. You know.
Right. Now let's get into our fan questions before we are joined by our next guest. But I guess before we should do fan questions. Let's just do real quick a brief recap of the Peters hire. Obviously, that's big news around the area, and that should be happy news. But a lot of people have been wondering why hasn't the team kind of publicly acknowledged and confirmed it yet? What do you think?
They're ashamed of them. No, I think that they want to make sure that they really know what they're going to do going forward before they have them sign something. I'm sure there's also. They're probably going to take the deal, but they're probably still getting out some specifics figured out exactly his salary, exactly what they're going to do with him. The control, he's got to look at the staff still, see who he wants to bring back, whether they're going to fire other people, whether or not. I don't. It's definitely interesting, but it's going to happen. It wouldn't be reported by Schefter and these people if it wasn't going to happen, and we'll get there eventually. And I'm sure that they've been working on stuff behind the scenes. I guarantee it.
Yeah, and it's just good to see with Adam Peters here because, I said it on Twitter. It took everyone a little while, 2 days to kind of get up to speed. But, yeah, elite executives were tripping over themselves to come work here. And that's something that's not happened in my lifetime that I've been aware of.
Right.
And it was absolutely crazy. And the people can laugh and say elite execs, blah, blah, blah. But these dudes were turning down other jobs. Right. And they were literally, this was the first place to go to. Like Ian Cunningham, that was my guy I wanted here, but obviously Peters beat him out. And look, more credit to you. This is what competition breeds. But Ian Cunningham immediately went to the Chargers to interview. Like he stayed here. Like he wanted to make sure first. And that's really cool.
They said he was turning down other offers. They said he was not scheduling anything because he was in the final two. And it was like, that's how bad they wanted. They didn't have a backup plan right there. It was like, all right, this is what we're going for. This is what all my marbles are in. And that's interesting. Also, like last year, Peters turning down the Cardinals and the Titans, and then this year the Chargers and the Raiders as well. And it's like everybody was saying it was like Washington and the Chargers are going to probably be the two best jobs to take. Washington's far and away number one. Right? Like it's interesting. All these people are like, no, we want to we want to interview there. We want to see what Washington's doing. And it's so weird. It's not a Scott McLuhan retread. We're like, look, I like Scott McLuhan. I still do. I know he gets a lot of shit from fans, but like Scott McLuhan didn't have a job because Scott McLuhan was an alcoholic. He had to come here. He didn't have any other choices.
Right.
We're like, okay, yeah, we'll bring you on. And that's not the case anymore. It's not we have to take these people. It's not we have to hire Jim Zorn because nobody else will come here. It's like we're going to have a choice. And it's interesting.
It is very interesting. I heard people kind of like saying, just talking crap a little bit about the team. And where we are, and I absolutely love just the kind of situation we are, because they were saying that the Bears were in a better spot for a GM, so to speak, and I actually didn't agree with that. I know that the Bears have a very good roster, and they've really done a good
right.
they've done a good job of building it, but that doesn't fix the issue of a new GM having to decide between Justin Fields and #1 overall pick. That is a big decision to have to weigh.
Right.
And that's not the same situation that you have here. And the thing is, you don't have those big contracts over your head here that you do in Chicago, like i.e. Montez Sweat that you're walking into. And so, look, as much as we want to talk about the GM job and what's a better situation ultimately for a new GM, in my opinion, it's Washington, because you are starting Bear and there's no huge contracts, and you can go at will, and you're also in a very good position to start.
Right. Also, the Bears are already kind of mid-rebuild. Ryan Poles, that's who it is, right? Poles, their GM, he was just hired. He went there when Cunningham went there because he brought Cunningham along with him. So they're already like mid, like this is year 2, or they're entering year 2 or something of this rebuild. They've done an excellent job, but yeah, I mean, really the only thing that they could offer would be the draft picks. And I mean, because they've been making so many trades, and do they need to take a quarterback? Who knows? Or they might get more draft picks for it, but like, we have a lot of draft picks. We don't have these contracts overhead. We have a lot of cap space. So,
yep. And now this question was submitted by Brett Jeffries on Twitter. Thank you, Brett. This question: the main topic needs to be, who is the best head coach candidate to work with Adam Peters? Not the coach this fan or that fan wants or thinks is the best. Because those with a good memory will recall it was important to Josh Harris to find that match, like Gibbs and Bobby Beathard.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Whoever it is, he has to be on the same page as, and that's why there is somewhere, I forget who posted about it, but there is a bit of a connection between Peters and Johnson, just in the fact, I think it had something to do with Adam Gase or something, because Johnson was on Adam Gase's staff in Miami, and then
the other one was Spielman. Rick Spielman's brother is in Detroit.
In Detroit, yeah. So who knows? I mean, possibly, but I don't really see much connection. Like if we had hired Cunningham, it would be easier to kind of see the connections, but really the only person would be Slowick, right? Slowick has a connection right there with him being under the Shanahan's and I mean, with San Francisco and stuff. But other than that, I mean, the other top candidates, like you look at Mike McDonald. Mike McDonald doesn't really have a connection to him. He was connected to the Harbaughs. He's Raven. He went to Michigan. And then Dan Quinn. I mean, Dan Quinn's a popular name right now. I know that people are excited for him to get a second chance as a head coach. I don't know if there's a connection there. So really, I think if you're just looking connections-wise, it would be Ben Johnson and Slowick, right? That's got to be the only two.
Oh, yeah, and then also Steve Wilkes. I've heard Steve Wilkes is the name that Adam Peters likes a lot, obviously, with their time in San Francisco and just knowing around the league. I do agree with you that Bobby Slowick would probably be the best course of action, the best fit, Brett. And I agree with you, Reed. And the reason why I say that is, you know, I think that the power dynamic is going to be very important, right? And Ben Johnson being a national name, everyone is highly sought after. There could be a possible power dynamic issue down the line if maybe some draft picks don't come out. And then you start to have the thing is it Bobby or is it Peters?
Right.
And I don't want that issue to come about, right? So I do think that Slowick is probably the best recipe for Washington because he's the young, offensive coordinator, young mind that worked on defensively, kind of off the radar aspect of coming through the NFL off Pro Football Focus, off the beaten path, but working hard to get there. It's almost Joe Gibbs-esque, being a normal human kind of way. And so I think that I do agree with you that I think Slowick would be the best recipe for success. And also if you're drafting a rookie quarterback, obviously Slowick having success with Stroud this year would kind of help bolster the argument in that sense. But now we are joined by our next guest, Mr. Street Scores Rico. What's up, brother? How you doing? Hey, you're muted. There you go. I can't hear you yet.
Real fast, while Rico gets it figured out, and I'm getting way ahead of myself. I just dove deep into it, but the interesting thing would be like if they did hire, say, Ben Johnson, who would he bring over for his defensive staff? Because like you look at, he was with Joe Philbin and Adam Gase's Dolphins staffs, and then he was also with Matt Patricia and obviously the staff up there in Detroit right now. So like he hasn't coached with many very good defensive coordinator prospects. There was the dude who's the defensive coordinator now for the Texans was somebody who he coached with, but that was really the only one. So it'll be interesting to see who he brings over to control the defense. That's, like I said, way ahead of myself right now. Now, offensive wise, he could put together a hell of a staff, but
Yeah, exactly. And then the funny thing is with this team, with the draft picks and assets that have been divulged into the defense, you'd almost want the young offensive coach to be geared towards offense. Be easier to kind of fix a defense in that regard if you look at it that way. Now we are joined by our next guest, Mr. Street Scores. What's up, brother? How you doing?
Uh-oh.
I can't hear you. No, it didn't fix it.
Oh,
It's all
Okay.
good. There you are. I can hear you now. What's up,
there
dude?
you go.
Hey, how y'all doing, man? Happy to be here, man. How y'all doing?
Doing all right, brother. I gotta
A lot
ask
better
you.
than we were during this season. I'm telling you that. Things are starting to look up now.
I wanted to ask you a fan question. This one was submitted by Brett Jeffries. But who is the best candidate, head coaching candidate to kind of work with Peters?
As far as Peters goes, that's a hard match. Who are my top three? I mean, it's fairly obvious. The names, the most notably being thrown out there, like Ben Johnson, Bobby Slowick, and Mike McDonald. I feel like all of them have their different advantages. Like Mike McDonald embarrassed the other two candidates when they played, but then Bobby Slowick looks like the QB whisperer and the QB developer, and it looks like we're more than likely going quarterback second overall. So if you really want a guy that can develop a quarterback and turn him into CJ Stroud within 1 year, that's the guy that's proven to do that. And then you also have Ben Johnson. It looks like he knows how to get everybody involved. I mean, we've struggled with tight ends. I don't even feel like it's necessarily been a lack of talent, the biggest problem. I feel like it's just a lack of getting them involved in the right ways. And I feel like Ben Johnson does that really well with the Lions, running backs, wide receivers. Everybody eats. If you're looking for
he says he likes to show off the O-line too, which is impressive.
That
He was like, we're not a quarterback-driven team. We're an O-line driven team.
That's
exactly
awesome to hear. And I will say this. Now that you say that, Rico, if they do go down the route of Slowick, I would say if you're going down that rookie kind of going out on the limb and you want to have that balance, you should have an older defensive coordinator. So if you're hiring Slowick, you better pull out the Brinks truck for Wink Martindale and try to get him and his staff over here, because that's the kind of personality you want to be able to help and feed off of, Slowick, if that's the route you're going.
Jack Del Rio to come in here and
yeah, he's a good name that's out there available right now.
How quickly we forget.
You're absolutely right. Street, I want to get your opinion on this, man, because a lot of people, we've talked about the Mike McDaniel, Slowick, Ben Johnson aspect of it, but in your honest opinion, what is the best kind of head coach, the defensive-minded or offensive-minded, that Washington should go down?
It's really difficult schematically because I feel like you can win with both. My problem with defensive-minded is that since teams are always looking for the next offensive-minded guy, if you hire a defensive-minded head coach and then we do hit on offensive coordinator like we hope to, like we want to, other teams are going to try to steal that guy over and over again. It's already difficult enough to hit on the guy once, but then you're going to have to hit on him over and over again. I mean, look at the Texans. They had Bobby Slowick for 1 year, and he's already about to leave and become a head coach. So now they got to find another guy to come in, and hopefully that guy can do the same thing with CJ Stroud. And if that guy is great and is exactly who they hope, then they got to find another guy. So I prefer to go ahead and go offensive-minded because I feel like teams aren't trying to steal defensive coordinators as much as they're trying to steal offensive coordinators from you.
Yeah, and honestly, I keep thinking about Wink Martindale, because I really hope that happens, because that would create such a great rivalry in this division.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
The way that situation ended, oh yes, I would love that.
So funny. I think that's so funny thinking about him and Dayball getting into it like that.
Is somebody saying it looks like
pay money to watch them fight two fat old dudes?
it killed it for me when somebody said Dayball looks like a big bearded baby, and I was like, man, that's 100% right. Now,
we're all big bearded babies. We've all been babies before.
This next question was submitted by the Colonel. Reed, not to play devil's advocate, but do we know what our new hired GM Adam Peters' role was in San Francisco with the 49er Trey Lance debacle? The 49ers gave up first-round picks in 21, 22, 23, and their third-round pick in 22. He was traded to the Cowboys for a fourth-round pick after all that. Please comment.
So this has been something that has been talked about a lot lately, and the thing about it is nobody knows who called the shots for that in San Francisco. There's people that say that they know that Shanahan wanted them and was pounding the table for him. There's people that say that it was the exact opposite, that it was Lynch and his staff that were doing it, and then beat writers and people from San Francisco say, nobody knows. And to be honest, we're probably never going to know because they're never going to leak it. We're not going to be in that war room. But either way, let's say that they all agreed on it. Everybody misses. As long as the good outweighs the bad, that's kind of what you're looking for. And yes, that was bad, but every single GM has missed. And you can't. And plus, Trey Lance was easy to fall in love with. dude, he had all the tools. He had so much going for him. It just didn't work out, and that happens sometimes. That can happen with anybody.
I know
Look
that.
at Jordan Love today. Look at Jordan Love today. They were hoping they had Jordan Love and a Trey Lance, same type of guy in the draft.
Yep.
Yeah, and I did hear that John Keim had a 49ers beat reporter on who said that from what he's heard that Lynch and Kyle Shanahan run rounds 1 through 3, and that Peters was running 4 through 7. And so Peters truly gets the credit for Brock Purdy and some of the great assets that they have gotten
Kittle,
there.
Fred Warner.
Kittle. Yeah.
Exactly. And so if that is true, because like Reed said, we truly don't know at the end of the day, but if that is true, then it's a good way to kind of say that you can trust Adam Peters looking forward and being able to find talent. I think there's anything that you can say about Adam Peters that he does well in his, I guess, consistent career of just successful winning. The fact is he has an eye for talent, and that is always a great place to start from. And as a GM and just a player development kind of guy, because we all know Bruce Allen was a numbers guy, and how did that do for us with player development and stuff? Didn't do all that well.
And now, to add to that, even just the whole Trey Lance situation, the way I look at it, and maybe I'm just glass half full, but how great they are even after botching that whole situation.
It didn't even matter that they traded all those draft picks and missed on a franchise quarterback. It didn't matter.
Yeah. And still top
look at
team
where they're at.
In the NFC. Yeah, exactly.
That doesn't happen. Usually that's a death kiss. Usually GMs get fired for that. Coaching staffs get fired for that. If you miss on that guy and you traded all those assets, you're done. Nobody wants that job anymore because you don't have any assets to move up. You don't have any assets to draft players to build that roster. They were still hitting on guys like Kyle on the weekends. They were just hitting on guys left and right. They're hitting on everybody. And so that's good. That's huge. The fact that they could still pull that off.
Stupid. Now let's go to our fan questions in the Discord. Street, this is from Arch Deluxe. The question for the pod, Mike Vrabel?
Not really for me. I mean, he's very proven, but at the same time, and I like him as a head coach, but he's like a defensive-minded head coach, and they've been pretty bad defensively for the Tennessee Titans overall, especially with the talent that they have. They kind of underperform. And if you're known as the defensive-minded culture guy, if your defense did not perform well, I don't know. I don't think it's like a bad idea, but the fact that we're able to get the top GM candidate, it's looking like we have our options as the top head coaching candidates. I feel like that would be a settling for Mike Vrabel in a way. A couple of years ago, we would have been screaming for Mike Vrabel. Now with the situation where we have Ben Johnson as an option, Bobby Slowick as an option, Mike McDonald. I would prefer to go with those guys, especially younger as well.
I think with Mike Vrabel not having being able to control what happens with personnel, with given what's already having here, I think it would be smart to bring him here as a defensive coordinator. If you're going down the route of a new, younger, offensive-minded head coach, somebody like Vrabel would be a great balance, like I talked about just not too long ago. It's not like he'd be my number one choice in that regard, but your staff would be better with Mike Vrabel on it. I think at this point we all know that the consistency, the kind of the rah-rah that he brings, almost like a younger Ron Rivera, and that's what you want as your defensive coordinator. I think we all can agree Ron Rivera was a great defensive coordinator. It's just things happened over time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Mike Vrabel as a defensive coordinator, yes, please. I was just thinking like head coach, no thanks, but defensive coordinator, especially with like a Bobby Slowick as a Ben Johnson as your head coach, oh, yeah, that's actually probably one of my dream case scenarios.
That would literally be like the best case scenario you could think of. Having somebody completely run the defense like that, get those boys that have been – look, I don't want to hate on them. Seem to be kind of undisciplined on the defensive side this past year. Get somebody like Vrabel who really understands the players, who players love to play for, and who will get on people's asses. That would be sign me up for that.
Absolutely. Street, this next question is from Tim Towner in the Discord. I hear talking heads repeat the same thing. The three most important hires are the GM, the head coach, and the quarterback. And there is a general assumption that we go with a quarterback if we end up picking at 2. If you are GM, would you go best quarterback or best player if the choice at quarterback really doesn't fit with what you plan to do?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, don't take a quarterback unless you love them. Now, I feel like we're in a situation where they're going to love at least one of those top 3 guys. So even say Caleb Williams goes number 1, I think they would be more than happy to still get one of the other 2. But I completely agree with the fact that if you don't love a guy, don't force it. Don't try to fit a square peg into a circular hole. Don't even do that. If the guy that you love is gone, trade back, even maybe take an elite player, but don't trade out of the top 5. You still want to get like an elite tackle or something like that. But yeah, don't take a quarterback just for the love of taking a quarterback. Take your guy that you scouted. You plan on designing the right offense around him that's going to bring out his strengths, hide his weaknesses, and build around him and all that type of stuff. And the guy that you're going to be patient with and not just be ready to throw him to the curb after just one season.
Yeah, I would agree there. It's a really tough question because if the quarterback doesn't fit with what you want to do there. But the funny thing is, all these quarterbacks are very mobile. They make things happen after the play. They extend the play. They have really good arms when they are in the pocket. They do operate very well inside the pocket. And so it's almost like, yeah, they don't fit what you do. But the thing is, they all can do the same thing if you really, truly wanted them to. And it's all based on coachability at that point. But that being said, looking forward, if Adam Peters doesn't want to go with quarterback and he wants to trade back, then I think that's probably the best case that you want to go down, right? If you don't really want to go with the quarterback route. But at this point, being at number 2, the way the cards have fallen, I think you're going with the quarterback. And I think with all those top 3, I'll even put Penix in there, dude. If you're looking with Penix at the end of the first, the beginning of the second, you're like feeling really good about that. And if you have Ben Johnson as your head coach with Mark Burnell as the offensive coordinator, who's a lefty who played here in Washington, wouldn't be a bad idea to bring Penix here. I'm just saying. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But it's hard to say, Tim, does he fit you or does he not? I think it's more so of, can you win with him? And can you get the most out of him? And if you can absorb and be able to work with that quarterback, then you will absolutely take him. Because like we said before, Street, how long have we been in this purgatory? And you are in prime real estate to be able to start your franchise on the right path. Regardless if we want to talk about if it's the right quarterback or not, look at Jacksonville and tell them that it was a mistake taking Trevor Lawrence. That is a direction for them. They needed a direction after so many years. And that direction is what we honestly need. And is that more valuable than, being right?
Right. And that's the other thing. Like, it's been so long, guys. Adam Peters, whatever. We're origami in your hands. Just make us into whatever you want. I don't care. Just do something. We're yours. Yeah. Have your way with our roster, dude. Build it in your image.
Hey,
You're
this is a
God now.
really good question from Scott Hartley. Reed. Oi, in the UK, if we go with the defensive-minded head coach, do you see EB staying as offensive coordinator, or is it a full clear-out?
No, I think it'll end up being a full clear-out. The writing seems to kind of be on the wall for a lot of these guys, except for Mayhew, allegedly. Who knows what's going to happen with that? But I think it's just like Josh Harris wasted no time getting this done, and I think that they understand, like, they gave Rivera and this coaching staff a chance. They gave him more than a fair chance. They gave him the entire season. So at this point, it's just they got to rebuild the team. They understand that, and I think that they are just ready to go. I think that they want to clear house, even if they get a defensive coach. But who knows? Maybe Adam Peters says, no, we're going to hire a defensive guy. We need to build that defense up. I like the direction that EB's headed. And they keep him. I just think that's slim to none. I don't think that'll happen.
Yeah, and also keep in mind what Cole Turner told us about EB last week. He made a certain comment saying that EB did have control over, have the keys over everything, but also not that much time to be able to implement the personnel that he wanted, right? And so that's always something to consider looking forward in that regard. It's not out of the realm of possibility. If you do lose out in Bobby Slowick, if you do lose out in Ben Johnson, you go with, and it's not like you're losing out because Mike McDonald would be a fantastic head coaching candidate to bring in here, but having somebody like Eric Bieniemy who's familiar with the players would help out Mike McDonald a lot. And so in that sort of situation, I could understand it, but I wouldn't be crying over it. I respect Eric Bieniemy, but that third person, man, it's crazy. Now, Street, the next question that we have, this one's from Big Tony Shivers. His question is, Rappaport said that Dan Quinn is one of the Commanders' top candidates. What are your thoughts on him as head coach?
I'm too good. As employee of the month, full-time Falcons hater, I absolutely loved what he did to them, and I do not want him to come here and do that. As a defensive coordinator, excellent. One of the top defensive coordinators in the NFL, but as a head coach, that perpetually average is only something I wish on my worst enemy. That never good enough to win the biggest games, never bad enough to get the top players. It bothers me. I'm not a big Dan Quinn fan. Defensive coordinator, please, but head coach, no thanks for me.
I would only entertain the idea if Michelle Perkins was being legit when she said that she was going to follow Dan Quinn wherever he went. If he did get a new head coaching job or leave the Dallas for that, I would entertain that idea to be able to rip both of them away. Yeah, I would entertain it. What about you, Reed?
it doesn't really move the needle for me personally, but at the same time, there's got to be a reason that so many people around the NFL are allegedly saying like Dan Quinn deserves another head coach and this dude. So like I'd talk myself into it for sure, obviously, but he's not my first choice. I'm too of the mindset that I want one of these young up and coming guys. I don't want to retread, and that's just kind of where I'm at. But would I like it? Of course I would. I'd talk myself into anything. We could go out there. We could draft JJ McCarthy second overall. I'd end up talking myself into it eventually. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So. Now the next question is from Deluxe in the Discord. To you, Street. Thoughts on what Slowick has done with the offense helmed by Stroud compared to what Johnson has done with Golf?
Yeah. Yeah, I think with Slowick and Stroud, I think Slowick does a great job of taking advantage of what he has in Stroud, because that touchdown to Dalton Schultz yesterday where the whole offense was moving one way, Dalton Schultz did like a delayed post the other way, and then CJ Stroud has to like turn his body off kind of almost his back foot and threw it perfectly accurate really far down the field. Not a lot of quarterbacks can do that. There are a lot of offensive coordinators that can have a talent like CJ Stroud but not think to actually try to get that out of him. So I love that Bobby Slowick knows how to take full advantage of his quarterback and getting these receivers involved. Like coming into the season, I mean, Tank Dell and Nico Collins look great, but nobody expected this.
They don't have the best they shouldn't have the best personnel like wide receiver pass catchers, but yet CJ Stroud was putting up gaudy numbers and making the most out of them. Apparently, who knows? Maybe Tank Dell's the second coming to Deshaun, but yeah, it's interesting.
Tank Dell, that was my boy.
Yes, sir. And I was gonna say, Ben Johnson, I feel like if you want to go like the guy that gets everybody involved the best, that's probably his thing, because I think he set some NFL record this year with like his running backs each having like 1,000 all-purpose yards, 2 wide receivers 1,000 all-purpose yards, and then like Sam Laporta having like 10 plus touchdowns, something that has like either never been done before or hasn't been done in like at least 30, 40 plus years. And I mean, Jared Goff is a solid quarterback, but nobody mistakes him for an elite one. So imagine if Ben Johnson can get his hands on a guy with more arm strength, more mobility, what he could do with that.
Right. Yeah, look, I'm going to start this off by saying it's not that I don't think that Ben Johnson is a good coordinator. I'd be very happy if he was the head coach here. I think that we'd be looking at a very good situation. That being said, I will look at it in this breath. With C.J. Stroud and Houston, looking at them, right? When you look at their offense, they added the young group, right? And you're starting from scratch. Imagine that's almost like starting a restaurant with a bunch of chefs basically that you just took out of school. They just graduated, you brought them, and you were churning out a 5-star restaurant. Ben Johnson, on the other hand, he has well-acclaimed, world-renowned chefs in his restaurant that he started. He has guys that have been implemented, high assets, and meaning is the top-of-the-line guys he brought in. He's pummeling out a 5-star product that's really good. Well, what is more valuable to you, and what gives you the most confidence looking forward and being as saying, can I replicate that 5-star scenario here? What is contingent based on that? And I think that Slowick, you would say, is more confidence building in to say, if I can't guarantee that 5-star scenario, that he'd still be able to give me more and close that 5-star scenario. And so in that breath, I like Slowick a little bit more, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get that. Here's the thing with Slowick, that we don't know if the Texans' offense went from 16 points per game to 22 or whatever, just because C.J. Stroud is actually just like that good, and any offensive coordinator could succeed around him. And keep in mind, Slowick's only done it for 1 year. Ben Johnson going from 26 point something to 27 point something with tape already on his offense with the same group of guys, core guys. I think that's pretty impressive. I think that's almost more impressive, averaging more points the following season.
And what I really wanted to say is what really impressed me yesterday with Slowick's play calling is there was a graphic that came out from the regular season that the Texans' offense was actually like bottom 2 in the NFL in the run-pass ratio for their downs, which tells you that obviously he was really catering to Stroud of being able to run the football heavily. But when you watched the game yesterday, is that how they started? They started out with a wide receiver screen to the outside, and that's the beauty of the kind of chess match of what Bobby Slowick is doing, the adaptability of saying, I know you're expecting me to go run, pass. Well, guess what? In the playoffs, I'm starting by pass. And you really saw how it's screwed with a great defense like Cleveland to the point where you're getting gashed upfield all day long, and it didn't even feel like a playoff game.
I don't think you can go wrong with either guy.
Yeah,
to be honest,
I agree with you.
It seems like they kind of both utilize their talent the best and kind of cater to that, as opposed to like, EB, and look, I like EB. I still like EB, but like being like, all right, it's first down. We're gonna run it up the gut, up the left guard or the right guard. You guys aren't gonna get it. Jay Gruden used to do that all the time, and I understand it. But yes, switching things up, doing things differently. That's how you win in the NFL. And obviously, both those guys did that because their offenses improved this season, and it's just impressive, man. I don't think. I mean, the fact that they passed so much in Houston, CJ Stroud only had 4 interceptions all year. Like that's gotta at least in part be to coaching, especially knowing that Suggs a PFF guy, an analytics guy. Like he's a smart dude.
He is, and I
just
think full circle, just beautiful.
And I was just gonna add to your points, like with Bobby Slowick, how Bobby Slowick set it up all season, showing strong tendencies one way, get to the playoffs, do the complete opposite. Poor Cleveland Browns practicing for one thing the whole time,
right?
And then now they have to adjust to that next thing. And Ben Johnson did similar things as well, because I remember at one point he called a certain play, did one thing, noticed how defenses played against it, and then like 3 or 4 weeks later, he called that same play, but instead threw it to Sam Laporta, and he was like wide open because of it. And so like they both have that same chess match where they build on certain tendencies, give you a look, and then know how you're going to try to counter that look and then counter that before you're even prepared.
Yeah, and I think, Reed, you hit it right on the head. I mean, honestly, it doesn't matter which way you go here. I think you're in a very good position. You know what I mean? And that's probably a really cool thing to say about Washington altogether, that you just didn't expect that.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of expected, like we were talking about it kind of during the season, like who are these head coaching candidates? Washington should be a pretty desirable thing, but to talk about it and then for it to actually happen is pretty, after the devastating season we had, it's interesting.
Yeah, now
also, before we move on, Ben Johnson, they like interviewed him a couple of days ago, and they straight up asked him, with all of these interview requests, do you plan on taking all of them? He was like, nah, not really. Like, he probably has his eyes set on a couple of teams, and I'm thinking that we're definitely one of those teams.
Yeah, and then he also finished it off like a good coach should and be like, I'm not even worried about it right now. Honestly, he's like, I'm just focused on the playoffs.
And remember,
there you go, Ben, saying all the right things, getting me all hot and bothered.
I will say this, though. Josh Harris made a point to say in multiple times an analytical approach, especially advanced ones.
Yeah. And it would make sense.
Bobby Slowick from PFF. I mean, you can't get more analytical than that, my friend.
Right. Yeah. And it's just like the scenarios kind of line up so much. Like Houston, look, let's be honest. Houston has been bad for years. They should not have been where they are, but they got them on both sides of the ball playing at a very high level. And it took a quarterback number 2 who most people had Bryce Young number 1. I mean, everybody did.
And honestly, I don't think D'Amico Ryans is getting enough credit for what's happening in Houston because he gave that job to Bobby Slowick, didn't he? Like he saw that and allowed it with the rookie quarterback, and just you're seeing the great. Just I hate the whole argument like best ever and kind of stuff because I feel like Pat Mahomes combined with Andy Reid was just a perfect situation of a very coachable player that had great talent matched with a genius offensive mind. And I think you're kind of seeing that with Houston, where a really structured, good defensive-minded leader of men at head coach, allowing for creative young offensive mind to have structure and freedom there, and you're kind of seeing the blossoming of it, and it's really cool. But to wrap this up, Street, the last question, this is on a fun note. This is from Tim Town in Discord. What was the last live musical event you went to? Made me think, too.
Years. I don't know.
Reed cheats because he's a DJ, so this is...
Yeah, but I haven't been doing it for the last few months. I'm slowing down, dude. I'm getting too old. But, like, the last concert that I went to, like, that wasn't just like a show or something, was like actual artist was like, I don't really like going to concerts too much, but last time I went to like a big concert was this was like right when Best I Ever Had came out. Drake was at 930 Club. I remember we went and saw him. It's just a smaller bit, like it's big, but it's smaller, like not somewhere you'd expect Drake to play it now. But this is when he first came out. Yeah, he brought out Birdman at one point. I remember Birdman had so much jewelry on, I was literally blinded. Like I couldn't look at the stage. I was just like, Jesus Christ, we get it. Good God.
I think my last musical event that I went to is my favorite band, Revolution. We went up and saw them at Pier 6.
Sick. Yeah.
I went there to Pier 6, and I'll never forget, Joe had to lie to his wife to go. And like he was like, don't post anything on Facebook until we're on the highway. As soon as we hit 495, you can post it because then we can't turn around and she can't yell at me. And we did that. I remember Joe got so drunk he didn't even make it out of the parking garage. He was throwing up before we even got in the venue. But that was probably one of the most fun times. But I've seen Revolution like 5-6 times in person. Obviously, absolutely love them. That was probably my last one.
Jason Wright go to some of their shows sometimes?
I think he likes Revolution. I'm not 100% sure.
Pretty sure somebody we were talking about that with him.
I think my most recent was like 2013-ish, I think. At St. John's, they had like a free concert. I forgot everybody who was there, but just to tell you the time, like Trinidad James was like the headliner.
Okay.
Last one to go. And so that was more so just something.
That was right when the Papa Molly sweat. Ooh,
yeah,
no,
all of that.
Yeah,
that was more so just going for a free event and a good time, more so than Trinidad James himself. But shouts out to him.
Yeah,
did you see the new Bill Burr Netflix movie, the Older Dads thing?
Old Dads.
Did you watch it?
I haven't watched it yet. I've heard
there was a part with the Trinidad James part. Dude, Street, you need to go watch it. It's hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. All right, everybody. That's going to wrap us up for this episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you made it this far, you're a freaking champion. Good to see the Cowboys losing at this point. I haven't watched all that much now, but I'm not sure what the score is anymore.
The score? Okay.
But it's been a blast, dude. Interviewing Cole Turner last week, being able to talk to Street Scores Rico now, and then having Steve Manella on before, just being able to break everything down. I watched Drake May today. I uploaded my breakdown today of Drake May. I did Caleb Williams yesterday. If you'd like to look at those film breakdowns, just go to Twitter and search in the Burgundy Zone, and you'll be able to see that, or with Caleb Williams there, and you'll pull up my profile, and you'll be able to look at those in perpetuity. Just letting you know, if you're a big fan of Drake May, you're not going to like the breakdown. All right, everybody. That's going to wrap us up for this episode.
I only hear what I want to hear. I'm not watching it, dude.
All right, everybody. That's going to wrap us up. Thank you to everyone who submitted to this episode. The Colonel. Thank you so much to Tony. Thank you to Scott Hartley, everybody in the Discord, Tim Towner, Deluxe. Appreciate you guys. Street, before we get out, I'd just like to plug your social media handle. Just in case anybody watching hasn't followed you yet, would like to, sir.
Yes, sir. Street Scores ATL, STREET SCORES ATL, especially on Twitter. Thank y'all for having me as always, man.
Of course, man. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Peter's Plan. And until next time, everybody, we'll see you on Thursday. Enjoy a great, safe week. And I know it's supposed to snow, so don't hurt yourselves, everybody. Be safe. All right, everybody. Washington football. Woo! What's up, everyone? This is Kyle from the Burgundy Zone. We are releasing our own merch to support the show. If you want to rock the Burgundy Zone logo or you want to see Reed's face on your shirt, we got it. We're starting with t-shirts, hoodies, and zip-up. So if you're a fan of the show, make sure you snag one before they are gone. Check out the link in our bio on Instagram, or you can find the link in the description of the video. Thanks again for all your support. Until next time.